After 10 years as my alpha boss's right-hand man, I decided to leave. When I handed in my resignation, he was clearly displeased. "Why are you leaving?" I glanced at the wedding ring on his left hand and pretended to be calm. "I'm getting married soon. My husband wants me to move away with him." The alpha was silent for a long time, but his knuckles turned white as he clenched his fist. On my last day, he wished me a happy marriage with a blank expression. I didn't look back. I just gently rested a hand on my stomach. Thank God I'm just a beta. He had no idea I was carrying his child. When I got out of bed, Raymond still hadn't woken up. Dragging my exhausted body, I quickly tidied up everything in the room. As I picked up the clothes from the floor, flashes of last night's wild scenes ran through my mind. Raymond, his eyes covered with a necktie, pinning me forcefully against the door. "Alexander, Alexander." He wasn't calling my name. I froze for a moment, the light in my eyes slowly dimming. My heart felt like it was steeping in vinegar, sour and bitter. The air was a thick mix of alcohol and pheromones. Scorching kisses trailed from the tip of my ear down to the nape of my neck. Raymond's sharp canines pressed against my skin, about to bite down. I knew I should stop him. After all, I wasn't the one he loved. But shamefully, I hesitated. In that single second, Raymond's pheromones were already flooding my system. I wrapped my arms around his waist, greedily inhaling his scent. Just for tonight, I thought, closing my eyes. Let me have you just this once. By the time I peaked, there was no turning back. Because I was so in love with him. After making sure he wouldn't notice anything was off when he woke up, I quickly left the hotel. Back at my apartment, I pushed through the pain to clean myself up, only to realize I had a fever. My whole body was burning up. I managed to call HR to request time off before collapsing onto the bed. When I woke up again, it had been 3 days. My voice was still a little hoarse, and faint kiss marks remained on my neck. I didn't pay them much mind, just threw on some clothes and headed out. As I approached the executive assistant's office, I could faintly hear a conversation inside. Owen has worked for the company for 10 years, and this is the first time he's ever taken such a long leave. He's been gone these past few days, and the boss seems totally out of it. Do you think something's going on between them? In your dreams. If something was going to happen, it would have happened by now. It's just that Owen is considerate and meticulous, and the boss is used to having him around. A prime alpha like the boss will definitely end up in an arranged marriage with another powerful family. Why would he ever look at a beta like Owen? They're not compatible at all. The spot on the back of my neck throbbed. I pushed the door open, feigning composure, and handed them their coffees. I had a family emergency, so I took a few days off. Thanks for covering for me. The office fell silent. Everyone looked awkward. I didn't have the energy to argue. A bitter taste filled my throat. After all, they weren't wrong. Raymond used to despise betas. The only reason I managed to get into the company was because we'd been classmates. Otherwise, a beta like me would never have been qualified to set foot in here, let alone fantasize about something happening between us. Raymond had a merger meeting with Thompson Corp. today. Normally, I'd be by his side for something this important, and I didn't want to miss it now either. I gathered the documents and knocked on the CEO's office door. "Come in." Raymond looked up, his dark eyes fixed on me. It was as if he'd been waiting for me to knock on that door every single day. I placed the files on his desk, but then he suddenly asked, "Where have you been these last few days?" My hand froze. I could smell the faint scent of his pheromones in the air again. I didn't dare look at him, so I averted my gaze and said, "A family member was sick. I took time off to take care of him." At that, Raymond frowned, clearly displeased. "Your partner?" I paused, then nodded along with his assumption. Last year, rumors about me and Raymond were flying all over the company. To stop him from getting suspicious and to keep my job, I lied and said I already had a partner and had no feelings for Raymond whatsoever. The rumors gradually died down, and no one dared to speculate about him anymore. As the CEO's executive assistant, I thought I'd handled the PR crisis perfectly, but Raymond didn't seem very happy about it. I couldn't figure out why, and just assumed I hadn't done a good enough job. Now, though, it was a good excuse for taking leave. After all, Raymond would never give someone with a family a hard time. I explained, half-truthfully, he had a high fever for a few days. He was really suffering, so I wanted to go home and take care of him. So you just left me at the hotel all night? You didn't come get me all night? Raymond's voice was laced with a subtle grievance and a hint of something I couldn't quite place: jealousy. His gaze was so direct that I had to lower my head. I'm sorry. That was my mistake. Such a weak explanation obviously wouldn't convince him. When Raymond woke up that morning, his whole body felt strange. For instance, there were 1 or 2 scratch marks on his right shoulder, a faint bite mark on his wrist, and the room was eerily clean. His head ached a little. He must have forgotten some things. When he asked the front desk, they said no one had entered his room last night. Maybe he had been sleepwalking. Raymond did have a history of sleepwalking, so he let it go. But when he got home, he felt a tightness in his chest. He belatedly realized this was the first time Owen hadn't come to pick him up. In the past, no matter how late his business dinners ran, Owen would always be the first one there to get him. He felt like a kid at his first day of kindergarten, always looking for that one person's face, so he could use his drunkenness as an excuse to lean on him and smell the faint gardenia scent on his clothes. It was comforting and fulfilling. But that night he hadn't come. Raymond felt an inexplicable sense of being wronged. He waited for 3 days, looking forward to seeing him every day, just wanting an explanation. But now he wished he hadn't heard it. Raymond's eyes scanned me, as if trying to see right through me. I stared at the documents, forcing myself to remain calm. I reviewed the data over and over, not sure if he was even listening. Just as I was about to finish, he suddenly asked another question. Is your partner a good person? Good enough for you to abandon your work and stay with him for 3 whole days and nights? My voice hitched and I gave a stiff nod. I turned my head, staring at his reflection in the glass curtain wall, and said slowly, he's gentle, very accepting, and he's amazing at his job. He's a really good person. I was picturing that person and wishing it could be Raymond. Without realizing it, my tone softened. I just didn't notice that with every word I said, Raymond's expression grew tighter until he spotted the faint, pinkish kiss mark on my neck. He completely lost it and said coldly, "That's enough." I heard the impatience in his voice and instantly shut my mouth. I had overstepped. He was just making small talk, not trying to pry into my personal life. Raymond's brow was deeply furrowed, his jaw tight. He was angry. I took the hint and started to leave, but in the next second, I heard him say, "You don't need to accompany me to the merger meeting this afternoon. Hand your work over to Henry in the executive office." The same newcomer who had just mocked me for being a beta. I silently lowered my eyes and replied in a quiet voice, "Okay." I hadn't been feeling well for a few days. I had a persistent low-grade fever, and Raymond was barely seeing me. Everyone was saying that Henry might be taking over my job. After all, Raymond had assigned several projects I was in charge of to him. Henry was getting more and more arrogant and increasingly rude to me. "Owen, are you getting old and forgetful? You still haven't given me last quarter's report." Then again, the abilities of lowly betas like you have a ceiling. No matter how hard you try, you'll never accomplish even a fraction of what we can. But since we're colleagues, I won't hold it against you. Just that, when I take over your position, I hope you'll be able to handle it. He smiled, looking harmless, but his eyes were filled with confidence. After all, the assistant position had always been held by Omegas. I was the only exception. Everyone assumed I'd gotten the job through connections. But they didn't know that I had also graduated from a top university, that I had made it through round after round of selections to be able to stand by Raymond's side. In terms of ability, I didn't think I would lose to any of them. I looked at this arrogant Omega in front of me, and slowly, deliberately, poured the rest of my coffee onto his brand new suit. The expensive suit was now soaked with coffee, a pathetic sight. I gave him a smile that didn't reach my eyes. This is my way of handling it. After splashing him, I turned and walked away without a second thought. Henry's face turned green with rage. He was about to confront me when someone stopped him. "Hey, don't mess with Owen. Be careful or the boss will have your head." Owen's been with the boss for 10 years. You think you can compete with that? Last time, some guy just accidentally bumped into him, and the next day he was fired and blacklisted from the industry. You'd better watch out. The chatter faded away. I sighed to myself, just hoping my body would get better soon. Maybe I thought he was dissatisfied with my work. This cold war between me and Raymond dragged on for a long time, until a week later when it started pouring rain. I forgot my umbrella, and Raymond just happened to be downstairs. Get in. His tone was stiff. I hesitated for a moment, but still got in the car. The heat was on, and there was a faint trace of pheromones in the air. My face grew hot as I thought of that night, and I instinctively turned my head away. Raymond was secretly watching my expression. His thin lips pressed together. Afraid your boyfriend will get the wrong idea? He asked suddenly. What? I was a bit surprised. I saw you covering your nose, like you were trying to avoid me. Are you afraid my pheromones will upset your boyfriend? I thought he might be overthinking things, so I had to turn back and explain. No, I just haven't been feeling well lately. I think I'm a little sensitive to pheromones. The corner of Raymond's mouth relaxed, the tension from before clearly gone. I thought you hated me. It was a casual tone, but it sent ripples through my heart. I didn't dare look at him again. When we got to my apartment building, he got out of the car with me. I was confused. Mr. Price, why aren't you heading home? Raymond leaned against the Rolls-Royce, a probing look in his eyes. Owen, we've known each other for so long. Aren't you going to invite me up for a bit? Besides, I'd like to meet your boyfriend. My eyelid twitched. I never expected him to pull something like this tonight. For once, I was flustered. He can't have visitors today. Raymond frowned, clearly not believing me. I tried another tack. I'm not feeling up to it. I'm not well. A corner of Raymond's mouth lifted, and he put an arm around me, guiding me forward. If you're not feeling well, that's all the more reason for me to come up. It's perfectly normal for a boss to care about his subordinate. Before I knew it, Raymond and I were standing at my front door. He stared at me, signaling for me to open it. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead, my hand trembling slightly. The key turned in the lock, and the door opened. But before I could step inside, a man's voice came from within. Owen, you're back? Instantly, both Raymond and I froze. Alex, wearing my gray apron, was cooking in the kitchen. Got a guest? He asked it so naturally. Raymond's face was an absolute thundercloud. I nodded in agreement and pushed him inside. He sat stiffly on the sofa, at a complete loss. You have company? I avoided his gaze. Yeah, he must have just gotten back. Raymond pressed his lips together and said nothing more. I quickly changed and went into the kitchen. Alex was simmering a soup. I asked in a low voice, "What are you doing back here?" He looked down. My mom made some chicken soup and told me to bring it to you. Speaking of Mrs. Davis, it had been a while since I'd visited her. After I moved to New York in high school, Alex and I became neighbors. My family was struggling back then, and Mrs. Davis often helped us out, frequently sending Alex over with things for me. After a while, Alex and I got to know each other. All these years, he's one of the few friends I have. Mrs. Davis and my mom were good friends. Now that she's older, she still thinks of me. That's why she often tells Alex to come check on me. To make things easier, I gave him a key. I never thought it would come in handy like this tonight. Alex ladled some soup, asking quietly, "Taste it and see if you like it?" His slightly hoarse voice pulled me back to the present. I pursed my lips and took a small sip. It's delicious. A smile touched Alex's lips. Good. He put the spoon back in the pot and shifted slightly to the right. Alex was an alpha, tall and broad, and the kitchen in my rental was tiny. With that move, he basically had me boxed in. The chicken soup on the stove bubbled away, its aroma drifting into the living room. Raymond felt like he'd been thrown into the pot himself, being roasted over a fire. He had always prided himself on his composure, but glancing toward the kitchen made him inexplicably agitated. Did they have to be so close? Then again, he thought they were a couple. This was perfectly normal. Raymond bit the inside of his cheek, wondering why he had followed him up here just to torture himself. He turned his head and actually started imagining that the alpha was him. He could wrap his arms around Owen's waist from behind, rest his head lazily on his shoulder, and make soup with him. But he quickly shook his head, admonishing himself that coveting someone else's partner was wrong. He had only heard that Owen was sick and wanted to check on him. They were just a boss and a subordinate. That was all. Raymond closed his eyes, rubbing his temples uneasily. All the romantic fantasies came to a halt with Alex's question. "Mr. Price, will you be staying for dinner?" Though it was a question, the tone was thick with dismissal. Raymond knew this was his cue to leave. He grabbed his coat and feigned nonchalance. "No, I have things to take care of at home." Raymond had only taken a few steps before the door slammed shut behind him. He clenched his fists, silently vowing never to come back here again. Just as he got in the car, Raymond's phone rang. "Raymond, darling, I'm coming back to the States soon. Last night I was busy cooking, so I had Alex ask Raymond what he wanted to eat. I never expected him to just leave." I felt a wave of relief, but also a strange sense of disappointment. It was better that he left. Acting in front of him was exhausting, but I was still a bit distracted during dinner. Maybe it was the lack of rest, but I was still drained when I went to work the next day. During my lunch break in the break room, I overheard some gossip. They said a new vice president would be joining the company in a couple of days, an expat who had studied abroad. More importantly, he was going to be Raymond's marriage partner. Henry heard this and let out a contemptuous laugh. That Omega is just coasting on his family background. What real skills could he have? Even if it's an arranged marriage, it's not guaranteed to last. After his tirade, he glanced at my weary expression and continued, "Owen, you seem so tired lately. You almost look pregnant. When that royal pain gets here, we're going to be even busier. You'd better get your act together." As he left, he arrogantly bumped my left shoulder. The impact left me stunned, my face nearly pale. Can a beta even get pregnant? I wasn't sure. The next day, I went to the hospital. The doctor informed me that I was, in fact, pregnant. He also said that the fatigue and discomfort I'd been feeling were normal pregnancy symptoms, and all I needed was proper rest. In a world where only alphas and omegas have pheromones, the probability of a beta getting pregnant is extremely low. But the doctor also said that a low probability doesn't mean it's impossible. If the partner is an S-class alpha and there's a true emotional bond between them, then a beta can conceive even without pheromones. But unlike omegas, betas have only one womb. This means a beta can only have one child in their entire lifetime. If I terminated this pregnancy, I would never be able to have children again. The doctor told me to think it over carefully. I stared at the little black dot on the report, letting out a self-deprecating laugh. This was just absurd. I propped my head up, my mind flashing back to that night. Raymond held me tightly from behind, biting my neck over and over, as if trying to pour all of his pheromones into me. But I don't have scent glands, so he literally broke my skin, letting his pheromones infuse my blood. It hurt so much. My attention was so focused on the pain that I didn't notice when he nodded inside me. My eyes shot open. I tried to escape the bed, but he grabbed my ankle and pulled me back. Raymond was angry then, his movements becoming rough and fierce. But the sweet nothings he whispered were so tender. "Please don't go, okay? My sweetheart, my treasure. I love you so much, Ian. But I'm not Alexander. I had stolen Raymond's love from someone else. So this child couldn't be kept. I hesitated for a moment, then scheduled an abortion. But the next second, I got a call from Raymond. "Owen, where are you?" Even though I knew he didn't know, I was still nervous. I gripped my phone and said calmly, "I'm in Midtown, picking up a file." I hadn't requested time off, I just made up an excuse to slip out for a bit. If he knew I'd taken leave, he would definitely ask questions. Raymond didn't detect anything unusual and gave me a new task. In that case, head to the airport and pick up Julian Song. Hearing that name, I really wanted to refuse. But if I did, Raymond would probably find out I was at the hospital. I clutched my phone and replied, "Okay." As expected, Julian was the new vice president. After he got in the car, he struck up a conversation with me. "Owen, it's been a while." I gave a faint nod. Julian was just being polite, he didn't really care about my response. I looked at this exquisite omega in the rearview mirror again. That's right. He was the one Raymond truly loved. Staring at him, my thoughts drifted back to the past. Back in school, I used to be Julian's gopher. He had just been acknowledged as the heir to a wealthy family, and he was spoiled, short-tempered, and loved to cause trouble, often offending people at school. Many alphas refused to be his bodyguard, only a desperate for money beta like me took the job. Julian had a bad temper, but he was generous with money. Every time I got beaten black and blue, a consolation fee would appear in my bank account. That money was enough to cover my mom's medical expenses. Later, I started working part-time, and my mom's health improved, so the expenses weren't as high. I stopped agreeing to be his gopher. But unexpectedly, Julian got very angry. After that, he often brought his bodyguards to cause trouble for me. He'd either rip up my books or make me fight his alpha bodyguards again. After tormenting me for over half a year, he met Raymond. The Price and Song families were both prominent families in New York. To maintain his image as a well-behaved young master, he stopped bothering me. Back then, the whole school was gossiping that Raymond liked Julian. When they graduated and went abroad, the rumor just faded away. Later, Raymond returned to the country to take over the family business, while Julian was still studying overseas. I never thought they'd get a chance to rekindle their romance. Julian was fussing with his clothes in the back seat, clearly taking this reunion seriously. As we neared the company building, Julian suddenly told me to stop the car. He had me get out and go to a bakery to buy a honey cake. It was Raymond's favorite. But when I came back with it, he dragged me into an alley. He grabbed my tie, his beautiful face twisted with rage. "You seduced him, didn't you?" Julian's anger was so sudden it left me bewildered. He said viciously, "You reek of his pheromones. You can't possibly not smell it, can you?" My pupils shrank and I took a step back. As a beta, my sense of smell isn't very sharp. But it had been over a month since that night. Raymond's scent should have faded to almost nothing. How could Julian smell it? He knocked the cake out of my hands, and the cream instantly stained my shoes. Julian's eyes were filled with hostility. "I forbid you from getting near Raymond. Owen, you don't want him to find out about your disgusting little secrets, do you?" I snapped my head up, terror in my eyes. A long time ago, Julian had found the love letters I'd written to Raymond. He didn't tear them up, he kept them. He said that Raymond hated betas so much, he'd be disgusted if he knew some creepy beta was secretly fantasizing about him. Julian had returned specifically for this marriage alliance. He wouldn't allow any complications. His eyes held the same mocking expression as they always had. "A lowly beta like you should just crawl back to the slums where you belong. Why do you keep getting in my way? I still have the photos and videos of you from back then. Beaten black and blue, snot and tears streaming down your face, covered in blood, looking like a filthy beggar. What, you want Raymond to see them too? Let him see just how ugly and dirty a lowlife like you is. If I ever see you near Raymond again, you can test me. See if I don't tell him all about how you used to be my dog while secretly lusting after him." Julian was full of arrogant confidence. When he heard approaching footsteps, he didn't hesitate to step on the cake and walk away. Once he was back in the sunlight, his face was all smiles again. Innocent, as if he didn't have a care in the world. He hooked his arm through Raymond's, his voice sickly sweet. "Raymond, darling, let me buy you a cake." Raymond frowned, pulled his arm free, and looked behind him. But the alley was empty. I hid in the shadows, my feet feeling as if they were filled with lead, unable to move. An autumn breeze swept through, and the alley grew cold and damp. I reached up and touched the raised wound on the back of my neck. It was still warm. What was so different about being a beta? I never considered myself inferior. But in front of Raymond, I couldn't take the risk. Looking down, I saw moss climbing the corner of the wall. Dark, damp, unable to see the light. I touched my stomach and made a decision. After my mom passed away, I'd been living alone, so leaving New York wouldn't be difficult. It only took me one night to pack everything. The next day, I submitted my resignation to Raymond. It was very sudden for him. Owen, give me a reason. Raymond's brow was furrowed tightly, his fingertips tapping rhythmically on the desk. It was a sign of his agitation, and it was only because of that that I noticed the ring on his left hand. I looked away, a bitter taste in my throat. I'm getting married soon. My husband wants me to move away with him. Raymond's frown deepened, a heavy weight settling on his heart. Married? You've never mentioned this before. I paused for a moment before explaining, it's his idea, and I don't think it's a bad one. Raymond stared at me without blinking, an indescribable sense of loss welling up inside him. After a long standoff, he took a step back. Owen, I don't see you as the type to give up your career for marriage. Even if you get married, you can still work for the company. Or, I can transfer you to a branch office you'd prefer. Raymond was always a master strategist, rarely so flustered. I was a little surprised. I never thought he'd try to keep me. Perhaps he wouldn't be able to adjust to not having an assistant for a while after I left. But thankfully, Henry had already taken over most of my duties, eliminating the need for a long handover period. I explained this to him, trying to make him understand that my departure wouldn't disrupt work. But Raymond didn't seem pleased. The knuckles of the hand gripping his pen were white, and his jaw was clenched tight. I thought for a moment, then laid my cards on the table. Raymond, I've been working for you for almost 10 years. It's only recently that I've realized this might not be what I want. I should have the right to choose my own life. So I don't plan on coming back. With that, I placed my resignation letter on his desk. In that instant, Raymond felt something inside him crack. His chest felt empty, so hollow that a cold draft could pass through it. As I reached the door, I suddenly heard a hoarse voice. Owen. He called out to me, his voice trembling slightly. My heart skipped a beat. I suddenly remembered his call yesterday when I was at the hospital. Had he found out something was wrong? With my back to him, I nervously touched my stomach. He continued, Do you love your husband very much? I let out a breath. Thank God it wasn't that. It was an unimportant question, so I casually replied, Yes, I love him very much. Raymond lowered his eyes, his voice choked. I see. As I packed up my desk, my colleagues all came to see me off. They were actually all really nice kids, and they hugged me one by one, crying. Only in front of Raymond did I feel a bit reserved. He stood ramrod straight, hands in his pockets, with no intention of hugging me. I awkwardly stepped back and hugged the colleague next to him instead. His Adam's apple bobbed, a flicker of disappointment crossing his face. In the end, all he said expressionlessly was, Congratulations on your wedding. On the day I left, I had already booked a flight back to my hometown. Unexpectedly, Alex was planning to go back too. He was one of the few people who knew I was pregnant. Though he was shocked at first, he eventually accepted it and became even more attentive and considerate than before. Seeing him so busy for my sake, I felt a little guilty. After all, I had used him as a shield. I never thought he'd find out so quickly. That day, after I walked with Mrs. Davis, Alex specifically asked me to stay. His bright, dark eyes held a certain kind of hope. Owen, you said I was your husband. I choked, my cheeks flushing, and quickly apologized. But Alex didn't mind at all. In fact, he went along with it. If it's possible, I'd like to keep being your shield. My mind went a little fuzzy. Seeing my blank look, Alex got flustered too. I mean, we could try being more than friends. He racked his brain to come up with those words. Though it was a bit clumsy, I understood what he meant. I lowered my eyes and took a small step back. Alex forced a smile, a slight sourness blooming in his heart. The moment before I could speak, he cut in. It's okay, we're still friends, right? He looked sincere, but his eyes held a new layer of caution. Remembering how he and Mrs. Davis had cared for me, I nodded. I didn't have many friends. I wouldn't push him away over this. On his way back, Alex felt a heaviness in his chest. Owen always had this faint air of detachment. He was always quiet, always keeping to himself. Alex himself had been too reckless, never daring to get close. So, They had always just been regular friends. Later, he found ambition, wanting to earn more money to give them a better life, but he was framed and went down the wrong path, ending up in jail for a few years. During those years, his mother fell gravely ill, and it was Owen who took care of her alone. He even quit his stable job to pay for her medical bills, bracing himself to apply to the Price Corporation, a company that had never hired betas. By a twist of fate, they missed each other for several more years. When he came out, disheveled and worn, Owen had already become a capable and independent adult. Alex felt even more unworthy of him and just wanted to watch over him from a distance. Until a few days ago, when he ran into Raymond downstairs from his apartment building. That man had snidely mocked Alex. The gist was that he looked like a scoundrel and wouldn't make a good husband. Alex was confused at first, but he quickly figured it out. Even if it was just an excuse, Owen had said he was his husband. Looked at that way, maybe he wasn't completely indifferent to him. With that thought, he shot Raymond a triumphant look. Then he snatched Owen's things from his hands and headed upstairs without looking back. He was successful now. He could protect him openly. I took a job as a teacher at the local public elementary school here. Perhaps it's the pregnancy, but I find kids these days much more adorable than I used to. When Alex isn't busy, he often picks me up from work and goes grocery shopping with me. He even said that after the baby is born, Mrs. Davis can be the grandma, and he'll be the godfather. Family of 4, living peacefully. I thought about it and decided that sounded very nice. My only worry was Mrs. Davis's health. That day, after her physical therapy session, I went home early. In the middle of the night, a light rain began to fall, and I heard a knock at the door. I scrambled out of bed, thinking it was Alex needing something. But when I opened the door, I came face to face with Raymond. The man stood in the rundown hallway in his tailored suit. His hair damp with rain, his eyes misty, looking like he had just emerged from a confusing forest. I gripped the doorknob, almost forgetting to breathe. Time seemed to freeze in that second, until his gaze shifted from my face to my slightly showing belly. Raymond's eyes quickly turned red, a flash of heartbreak in them. Realizing something was wrong, I turned to close the door, but he blocked it with his hand. He forced his way in, his rain-soaked body pulling me into a tight embrace. He was so tall that I had to stand on my tiptoes, my arms hovering uncertainly around him. Raymond buried his face in the crook of my neck, his shoulders shaking. Soon, a warm wetness seeped through my shirt. I heard his trembling voice say,
"Owen, I'm sorry."
After Owen left, Raymond couldn't adjust. Every day at work, he would still habitually use the intercom to call for him. Owen had a bad habit of not eating breakfast on time. Once, he had a stomachache from it, and Raymond felt like he was the one in pain. After that, he used his authority as the boss to make sure Owen ate breakfast with him every day. This was a secret no one else knew. But now that he was gone, no one answered his calls anymore. The succulent he kept on the desk was gone, as were his little sticky notes. He knew he would never see him again, walking in with a cup of coffee and a gentle smile. Raymond couldn't get used to it. His chest felt like it was stuffed with a sodden ball of cotton. It wasn't that he hadn't tried to get him back. That day, he took the pen Owen had left behind and drove to his apartment building. He rehearsed his words for a while, planning to subtly find out where he was going. Maybe with some business adjustments, they could meet again in the future. But just as he was about to go up, he ran right into his husband. That man was cocky and looked like trouble. He stingily made a mental note of his assessment, unable to hide the jealousy in his eyes. Unexpectedly, the man snatched the pen away, and he lost his last excuse to find him. That night, he went to a bar to drown his sorrows. And it was that night that he accidentally caught Henry trying to drug him. Only then did he learn that this malicious subordinate had tried to harm him more than once. The night Owen had abandoned him, it wasn't a dream. The name he'd been calling out, it was Ian's. He just hadn't expected the drug to have memory loss as a side effect, leaving him with only fragments. He wasn't without suspicion. He had tried to probe, both directly and indirectly, But Owen's denial was so absolute that his pride wouldn't let him indulge in unrequited feelings any longer. After Henry was caught, the truth unraveled before him like a silken thread. He realized Owen had felt unwell back then not because he was sick, but because he couldn't handle the overwhelming pheromones. He thought Owen was just in poor health and had planned to reduce his workload, never imagining that he himself was the one who had hurt him. Later, he checked with the hospital and used his connections to contact the doctor. That's when he found out Owen was pregnant. It was hard for Raymond to describe what he felt at that moment. It was like a lottery ticket he bought regularly had finally won, only to find out it had expired. He searched for him like a madman, but there was no news, until 3 months later, when word of him came from a distant place. He flew south without hesitation, but when he saw the alpha by his side, he lost his nerve. Owen had said he loved his husband very much, and he was the one who had hurt him. He started to remember that night, piece by piece, and realized Owen had always been turning his head away, refusing to look at him. Raymond was an S-class alpha, a beta like Owen couldn't possibly push him away. So he was the one who had forced him. There was no way Owen could ever love him now. With this understanding, he had been stalking him like a creep for days, not daring to get close. It wasn't until he was staking out the building tonight that he learned from a neighbor that Owen wasn't married at all. That alpha named Alex was just his friend. Raymond felt like he'd been hit by the jackpot, so happy he froze on the spot. That night, he couldn't hold back any longer and went upstairs. He had to see his Owen. He had to be his. He was holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. I couldn't help but pat his back a couple of times. Raymond pulled back slightly, but still didn't let go. He then asked, "Owen, did it hurt a lot that night? Since he'd managed to find me here, he must know everything." I thought for a moment and nodded. "It did hurt. Your teeth are very sharp." The wound on the back of my neck still hadn't fully healed. Raymond stared blankly for a moment, then nuzzled his head against me. "I'm sorry," he continued. "It's been hard for you, hasn't it? The doctor had said that betas aren't naturally suited for pregnancy. If they do have a baby, they suffer much more than a typical omega." I frowned, thought for a bit, and said, "Yes, it's been a little hard. At first, I had to outsmart the local thieves and scammers. Then I started having trouble sleeping at night. Recently, I think the change in environment has given me a rash, and it gets itchy at night. Thankfully, the baby in my belly isn't very big yet and isn't causing trouble, so I don't have to worry too much." Hearing my words, Raymond started crying again. I frowned in disgust, thinking to myself that alphas are so fragile, not nearly as emotionally stable as us betas. "I'm sorry, Owen," he said again. I sighed and waited quietly for him to compose himself. After half an hour, he still showed no signs of letting go, so I had to push him away. Raymond had cried so much his eyes were swollen, and from burying his face in my neck for so long, his face was flushed red. I turned to get a dry towel and wiped his hair and face. Raymond followed me like a clingy child, as if he was afraid I'd run away. I told him to sit down, but he grabbed the corner of my shirt and asked cautiously, "Why did you lie and say you were married when you were pregnant with our baby?" Raymond asked so bluntly. My hand paused, and I looked out the window. On the wooden windowsill sat the white gardenia I had planted. The light rain pattered against the leaves of the plane tree, just like my heart right now, filled with anxiety. I lowered my eyes and said hesitantly, "Because I thought I might like you a little." My voice was soft, but it landed like a bombshell in Raymond's heart. But just as quickly, I delivered his sentence. "But you don't like me, so I decided to leave. And now, I've realized you're not that important to me anymore." I put down the towel and stopped touching him. After leaving Raymond, I discovered that not missing him wasn't that hard. I have no family and no children. For all these years, only Raymond, my boss, had shown me any real care. Perhaps all this time, I had just been using him as an emotional crutch. And now I would soon have a baby of my own flesh and blood. Once I have a family, Raymond won't be important to me anymore. So even if he found out about my shameful old feelings, I wouldn't be afraid. If something isn't important, you don't care about it. Raymond's heart was a mix of bitter and sweet. He spoke eagerly, It's not that I don't like you. I do like you. I was the one who was always afraid you didn't like me. He looked like a student taking an exam, anxiously awaiting my judgment. After hearing him, my eyelashes fluttered, but I only replied faintly, "Thank you for liking me. But from now on, I probably won't need it." The rain stopped, and the room became eerily quiet. In such a still space, no emotion could hide. He looked down and saw my utterly calm eyes. No hiplis, no joy, no sorro. His heart felt like it was sinking to the bottom of a lake, sour and swollen. Raymond finally understood that Owen would no longer be moved by him, because he was no longer important. He didn't remember how he got downstairs, only that every step away from him was a stab of pain in his heart. Raymond stood downstairs, his hands still cold, as if they had never touched that person. At that moment, he finally understood that an expired lottery ticket can never be cashed. He had confessed too late. The moment he learned of the other's feelings was the moment they were destined to miss each other. After Raymond left, a faint scent of pine lingered in the room. He had been so emotional that he had unconsciously released his pheromones. But surprisingly, the discomfort and nausea I usually felt before bed were gone tonight. I had an exceptionally good dream, and I even dreamed of him. In the dream, Raymond was only 15. He suddenly appeared behind me, played a few notes on the piano keys, and corrected my mistake. I slowly turned around and saw the boy in a tuxedo. He shyly asked me if I would be his partner for a duet. My ears grew hot and I nodded. Back then, I was a bit of a loner and didn't have many friends. But the summer camp counselor required me to find a partner for a performance. Raymond's appearance was a godsend. He was boisterous and had many friends, so I wasn't sure if he would still choose me in the end. But before the performance, I dropped out of the summer camp. That summer, my mom got sick and my dad divorced her. My dad used to be a powerful alpha, but he could never mark my mom. Because my mom, like me, was a beta without pheromones or scent glands. Once, on a business trip, he got drunk and accidentally marked an omega. When my mom found out, she asked for a divorce. My dad argued that the omega had deliberately released pheromones to seduce him, that he was just following an alpha's instinct. As long as they didn't divorce, his love for my mom and me wouldn't change. But my mom was disgusted. After all, an AO marking meant she would have to constantly endure sharing her husband with someone else. In the end, when my mom was at her sickest, my dad took all the family's money and ran off. Species that can't control their biological instincts are just disgusting, I thought. And then, I turned around in the hospital and saw Raymond, who had just presented as an alpha. He probably wanted to come over and say hi, but he was scared off by the hostility in my eyes. I projected my baseless malice onto him, and he finally ran away. I thought he might retaliate since he was a rich young master. But unexpectedly, the money that trickled down from the Price family accidentally saved my mom. Raymond spent his first birthday as an alpha in the hospital. Old Mr. Price was so happy that he donated $500,000 to every room on the entire floor in the name of charity. $500,000 was exactly enough for my mom's surgery. After the surgery, Raymond disappeared. Later, my mom and I moved. I had thought about writing Raymond an apology letter, but I didn't know his address, and as I wrote, they turned into a few spoiled love letters. Even worse, they were stolen by Julian. By the time Raymond returned from the UK, we were complete strangers. Even though we were at the same school, we acted like we didn't know each other. I only saw him occasionally when Julian came to bother me. He would always stand by his side, then give me a disdainful glance, as if I were interrupting their date. My heart felt heavy. I thought he was petty and didn't want to look at him anymore. But with him around, Julian stopped bothering me to save face, and I had some rare peaceful days. After graduation, we went our separate ways again, until Alex got into trouble and went to jail, and Mrs. Davis suddenly fell seriously ill. To raise money for her medical bills, I quit my job and applied to the largest business conglomerate in New York. Coincidentally, there was a policy change that year, and the company, which had never hired betas, unexpectedly relaxed its hiring conditions. Later, many betas were even able to enter the Price Corporation based on their talents. But even more coincidentally, my interviewer that year was Raymond. With a gentle turn of its hand, fate brought us together again. He always seemed to appear like that when I was at my most wretched and most humiliated. And with a simple wave of his hand, he would lift the heaviest burdens from my shoulders. We seemed so far apart, yet he was everywhere. Like this morning, when I woke up and saw him leaning against the Maybach downstairs. Raymond smiled gently at me. "Owen, let me drive you to work." I didn't agree. I took the subway as usual. I didn't expect Raymond to follow me, squeezing onto the crowded train with me. By the time we got off, his dark blue bespoke suit was all wrinkled. After work, I went grocery shopping with Alex, and he followed us there too. The farce ended with Raymond stepping in chicken droppings and then slipping and falling into a fish tank. Laughter erupted all around him. He scrambled to his feet, a look of pure shock on his face. In the past, as his assistant, I would have been the one to handle everything. But I wasn't his assistant anymore. He was just a pathetic spectacle for everyone to gawk at. I stared at him, my lips parting, but in the end, I said nothing. As we neared Mrs. Davis's building, Alex went up first. Raymond, reeking of fish, kept his distance from me. I frowned and scolded him harshly. "Have you no pride?" He shot back, his eyes red. "Will pride win you back?" The wind howled, blowing his tears toward me. I took a deep breath and told him, "Raymond, I will never be with you. To be precise, I will never accept an alpha partner. After all, I'm just a beta. I don't have pheromones, and I can't be marked. You're acting like this now only because you're not used to being without me. When you meet a highly compatible omega in the future, you'll be drawn to her. You'll realize that's what you really want. So why make things so humiliating for both of us?" But Raymond said with conviction, "I won't. I will never betray you." My eyelids fluttered, and I looked up at him again. His eyes were like obsidian, filled with an extraordinary determination. "Owen, turn around and look at me. I won't let you down." This time, it was my turn to be speechless. I ignored him and went upstairs. I thought he would get the hint and give up, but a week later, he appeared again. In the middle of a downpour, Raymond knocked on my door. He had run here in the rain, his eyes bright and clear, but the words that came out of his mouth left me frozen on the spot. "Owen, I had my scent glands removed." I was too shocked to say anything. He blinked, his voice a little weak. "Ian, hug me." The moment I touched his hand, he pulled me into a full embrace. Immediately, I was enveloped in a rich pine scent. It was coming from the glass vial in his hand, which held his pheromones. The doctor said pheromones can make your pregnancy less uncomfortable. So I saved some, thinking I could give them to you. If you ever feel unwell, just open it. He handed it to me, the glass still warm from his touch. It felt like he was offering me his heart. It was scalding hot in my palm. I looked at him at a loss. "Why would you do this?" He bent down to look me in the eye. "Please trust me. Trust his sincerity. Trust his loyalty." I saw the raised scar on the back of his neck and quickly said, "I do. I trust you. Don't hurt yourself anymore." Seeing that I was softening, he pressed on. "If you trust me, will you marry me? But aren't you already engaged?" I looked at the ring hanging from a chain around his neck. It was the same one he'd been wearing on the day I left. Raymond frowned. "Who said that?" He took off the ring and firmly slid it onto my ring finger. "It's for you. My mom gave it to me to win over her future daughter-in-law. The day you left, I was going to give it to you." He coughed awkwardly. "I was thinking if you were really getting married, then if you were hiding my ring, it would give me a sense of participation in your wedding. Maybe I could even imagine it was me marrying you. But then you said you loved your husband very much, and I got angry and didn't want to give it to you anymore." At this, he curled his lips into a smile. "Good thing you lied to me." My resolve was wavering. I finally asked the question, "Then what about Julian? Aren't you two getting married?" At the mention of that name, Raymond's face filled with disgust. "Why would I marry him? I don't even like him. The Price family isn't so weak that we need to rely on marriage alliances to grow. The only reason I had anything to do with him was because—" He hesitated for a moment, but then chose to reveal the truth. You used to hate alphas, didn't you? Back then, you told me you hated me at the hospital, and after I transferred schools, you refused to see me. At that time, Julian said he was your friend. So I thought if I got close to him, I could see you. His every word fell on my heart like an overturned jar of lemon honey. Sour and sweet, it was enough to make my head spin. The back of his neck started bleeding again. I turned to get the first aid kit. As I bandaged it, my heart ached. But Raymond didn't seem to mind. He only cared about one last question. Ian, did you see the message I sent you the year we graduated high school? My hand paused. I said softly, I saw it. Back then, he had found the phone number I'd left at summer camp and sent me a text. The message said he was about to go abroad and wanted to see me one last time before he left. I didn't really use that phone number anymore, but I happened to turn it on that day. When I saw the message, I immediately headed to the airport. But on the way, I got the news that my mom had passed away. I didn't go any further. I went to see my mom one last time instead. After I finished my story, Raymond's eyes instantly reddened. I'm sorry. At the time, when he didn't see me, he had resented me for being heartless. Later, he broke his phone, and I couldn't find him either. We resented each other, always angry that the other wasn't steadfast enough. Until long after, when it was all too old to stir up any feelings. I finished applying the medicine, and then I heard him say, Ian, can you let me be your family? I don't want to miss you again. It was as if my wandering soul had heard his call. My heart, lonely for so long, started to beat again. I nodded. Okay,